What I thought I'd do is talk just a little bit about what led me to write this book, the sort of ideas behind me getting into it, and like my motivations, and then read a little bit from two sections of the book. It's divided into three different sections based on the areas that I was in where I was doing the work, and then finish with kind of what I took away from it, and then open it up for questions. So it was sort of, I don't know if you've seen the movie Capote, but in the movie Capote, Truman Capote is sitting and reading the New York Times, a short article about, I think it was like a brutal murder in Kansas, just sort of triggers him, and he reads it, and he's like, I know, I gotta like figure this out. I gotta go figure out what happened here. And I had just finished a writing project and didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of the great things about being a freelancer is that you have a lot of freedom to do what you want, but when you finish a new project, or when you finish an old project, you suddenly are back where you started, having no idea what you wanted to do. And with no boss to tell you what you should be doing, it can be very angsty. And I was in my living room and I was reading an article in the Times, and the article was about a hog slaughterhouse in North Carolina. And there had been an immigration raid. And so more than 1,000 immigrants, Latino immigrants in the slaughterhouse, took off. I think they only arrested like 12 or so. But sort of the workers left en masse, and suddenly the plant had to figure out how they're going to recruit many more U.S. citizens. And it shouldn't have been too hard because the wages in the area paid a lot better than what anyone else could find. It was above minimum wage, a couple dollars above minimum wage. But in the piece, they found that the native workers, the U.S. citizens that were doing the work, had much higher turnover rates. And they talked about how the work, you can imagine with hogs, they're big and they're smelly, and the work was very nauseating, but also their hands would be very swollen, and they were kind of dropping like flies. And so what I thought about that, first of all, was that I had written about immigrants for a number of years, and I thought, I realized that I didn't really have a good sense. I'd interviewed people about what the work was like, but I didn't have a good sense of what it might be to do this. When reading that article, I was like, wow, this hog slaughterhouse sounds terrible. I'd like to know more about that. And also, when I realized that there were these raids going on, there might be an opportunity for me to get hired. Now, at that point, it's all very abstract. It sounds like a good idea, but who's going to hire me? And what I decided was to try to spend a year going from various places in industries that are very reliant on immigrants, both legal immigrants and undocumented immigrants, to try to get a better sense of what the work is like. And the other really great thing that I was excited about was not only being able to delve into this work in a way that I wouldn't have access to otherwise. If I went to a chicken plant, like the chicken plant I worked at in rural Alabama, and said, I'm sure we're on the same page. You both would really love people to know more about what goes on behind this chicken plant that slaughters 1.5 million birds a week. Please let me document what happens here. Then I wouldn't have had any problem being honest. But I knew that they would have a problem with that. So I realized I'd have to go undercover. And I also realized that by going undercover, not only would I get a really good sense of what the work is like in a way that I wouldn't have identified myself as a journalist, but the ways in which I'd get to know coworkers. For an example, the plant I was working at in Alabama, it was Guatemalan immigrants, Mexican immigrants, and then native whites and blacks, rural Alabama. I could have sat down with workers as a journalist and said, tell me about race relations in this town, and gotten responses. I could have done what I did, which was do the work, hang out in the break rooms, listen to how people talk to each other, and just sort of be a worker and hopefully get a much more candid sense of what was happening. So I went the undercover route. The final thing that got me excited about this project was I try not to watch too much, and I succeed in not watching very much cable news. But when I see it, what really strikes me is that so much of the discussion about immigrants and so much of the people that are angry and that are pontificating, and they're so far away from what they're talking about. I mean, the story of immigration is a story of, coming and working hard, and not just to better yourselves, but really it's why I'm here, why probably a lot of you are here, it's because people were thinking about how their kids' lives are going to be better. And it's been sort of I see the word horror over there, but horrifying / intriguing to be doing. I did a couple talk show things, like on cable news, and where you just realize how, you're in a Manhattan studio at like 30 Rock, and it's air conditioned. You got these guys making strong statements about I'm this or that for immigration, and you just want to go, you have no real idea what you're talking about, do you? And so I thought it would be great to get as close as possible and just describe what the work is like, not editorialize too much, and not be a pundit. So the first place I went when I was trying to figure out what jobs I wanted to do and where I wanted to do them is I figured farm work would be a nice place to start, because I'm from California, and I remember driving along the coast in California and looking out and seeing people in Watsonville picking strawberries or doing lettuce in Salinas. And when I drove past, it looked like a totally foreign world to me. And I knew I had no idea. I know the work's hard. We all know the work's hard, but I didn't feel like very many Americans have a really good sense of what it would be like to actually do farm work. And I learned that when I was looking to do work, it was in late fall 2007, that Yuma, Arizona, anyone been to Yuma, Arizona? So it's like very hot in Yuma, Arizona. And it's the one place during the winter where it's warm enough to actually grow and harvest lettuce. So for much of the year, lettuce comes from Salinas, California, but in the winter, it all sort of shifts to Yuma. So about 98% of the iceberg lettuce the U.S. and Canada consumes in the winter months is all coming from Yuma. I also learned that they had a labor shortage. So that became my first sort of job, and I moved to Yuma. The piece about the book that made me very anxious always was I was moving somewhere where I didn't have any connections and I had no guarantee of getting a job, and each place could have been a total bust. But they hired me. And so the first piece I wanted to read was about a section in doing lettuce work. I'll have to say that lettuce by far, I worked harvesting lettuce for Dole for 2 months. I tried to do each job for 2 months just because I figured, I'm not walking in the shoes of immigrants. I'm visiting for a very short time, and I'm very different. I have much more options to make more money, and I went to college, I speak English. So I'm trying to be very clear up front that this is not, me walking in their shoes. It is sort of me hanging around a little bit and trying to get a little bit of a sense of what the work is like, and also getting a sense of who the people are. So 2 months was my goal. I will definitely go to my grave as one of my proudest physical accomplishments, surviving the 2 months in the lettuce fields, because it was just so physically demanding. But there's also a real sense of camaraderie, and you're working outdoors, that I really enjoyed. This section's towards the end of my 2 months in Yuma. It's after I had taken a 4-day break, which shows how privileged, the kind of things I could do that other people couldn't do, but it was either that or I was going to have to quit. Today should be easy. I'm rested, my fingers are opening properly, and I can walk without the soles of my feet hurting. I'm at Dole's office, waiting for the bus to come and the sun to rise, with 2 strong cups of coffee already in my system. I feel strong, healthy, recuperated, but no matter. It turns out to be the hardest day of my brief career in lettuce. We're working in a field near the town of Tacna, 90 minutes east of Yuma. After my 2-day absence, a number of people are surprised to see me again. I thought the lettuce killed you, Angel says, patting me on the back. It almost killed me on Friday. It turns out I chose my vacation wisely, as the crew worked well into evening on the 2 days I missed. The first notable difference in Tacna is that, for the first time, I'm actually seeing bugs in the field. When I had asked Pedro, the foreman, about the complete absence of insects, he responded by praising the quote-unquote very good fumigation